The obsidian council chamber hummed with a suppressed energy, a low thrum that vibrated through the very crystalline structure of the citadel itself. Light, refracted through the countless facets of the colossal geode that formed the chamber's heart, painted the assembled dignitaries in shifting hues of violet and crimson. They were the representatives of the unified stellar concordant, an alliance forged from 1,000 worlds, each member race possessing its own unique physiology, its own history etched in the starlight. Yet, for all their differences, they shared a singular, gnawing unease. It emanated from the distant Sol system, from a species barely a century removed from its own world, from a planet marked on their star charts as nothing more than a navigational anomaly. They called themselves humans. Grand Proctor Valerius, his carapace shimmering with nervous energy, cleared his throat, the sound amplified by the chamber's acoustics, cutting through the expectant silence. The matter before the council is, as you all know, the anomaly presented by the species designated as human. Their recent actions within the Kepler 186F system demand careful consideration. Counselor Arav, you have been the most vocal proponent of immediate intervention. Perhaps you would reiterate your concerns. Arav, his bioluminescent tendrils flickering with agitation, rose from his seat. He was a representative of the krill, a species whose mastery of energy manipulation was surpassed by none. Intervention is no longer simply a matter of preference, Proctor. It is a matter of necessity. These humans have exceeded all projections. Their technological growth has been exponential. Their disregard for established protocols is alarming. They established a colony on Kepler 186F without requesting permission, without adhering to the environmental safeguards mandated by the Concordant. They have begun to exploit the planet's resources with a veracity that suggests a fundamental lack of restraint. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Concordant, for all its internal squabbles, was united in its belief in the necessity of order, of controlled expansion, of adherence to established galactic norms. Humans, it seemed, embodied none of these virtues. Furthermore, Arav continued, his voice rising in intensity, their probes, their deep space exploratory vessels, they are venturing further and further into uncharted space. They are encountering artifacts of the precursors, the very things we have collectively sworn to avoid. Who knows what ancient horrors they might awaken? Who knows what cataclysm they might unleash upon us all? Grand Proctor Valerius held up a clawed hand, silencing Arav. These are serious allegations, Counselor. Do you have proof of this precursor interaction? Arav hesitated, his tendrils dimming slightly. Indirect evidence, Proctor. Anomalous energy signatures detected near several precursor ruins, trajectories consistent with human vessels, correlations that cannot be easily dismissed. Counselor Lyra, a representative of the Sylvani, a species of arboreal beings whose wisdom was legendary, spoke, her voice a low, resonant hum. Correlation does not equal causation, Counselor Arav. We must be cautious in our judgments. The humans are a young species. They are driven by curiosity, by a desire to explore. Is it not possible that they simply lack the understanding of the dangers inherent in precursor technology? Understanding, Arav scoffed. They possess the data. They have access to the concordant archives. They know the history of the precursors and the devastation they wrought. Yet they persist. This is not ignorance, Counselor Lyra. It is recklessness. It is a willful disregard for the safety of the entire galaxy. The debate raged on, voices rising and falling, accusations and defenses echoing through the chamber. Some argued for immediate military intervention, for a demonstration of force that would bring the humans into compliance. Others advocated for a more diplomatic approach, for a dialogue that would educate them about the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. Still others, a smaller, more cautious faction, suggested that they simply observe, that they allow the humans to develop, to mature, to either become a valuable asset to the Concordant or to self-destruct, as so many young species were prone to do. Grand Proctor Valerius listened patiently, his mind racing, weighing the arguments, considering the potential consequences of each course of action. The humans were an enigma, a wild card in the carefully constructed order of the galaxy. Their rapid advancement, their unpredictable behavior, their seeming indifference to established norms, it was all deeply unsettling. He had reviewed countless intelligence reports, sensor readings, and diplomatic assessments. He had even attempted to simulate human behavior using the Citadel's most powerful computational matrices. But the results were always inconclusive. The humans were simply too unpredictable. He thought of the long history of the Concordant, of the countless conflicts and alliances that had shaped its evolution. He remembered the warnings of the ancients, the prophecies of species rising and falling, of galactic empires built on sand. He wondered if the humans were destined to become another fleeting star in the cosmic tapestry, or if they represented something truly new, something that could either elevate the Concordant to unprecedented heights or plunge it into unimaginable chaos. He had to make a decision that would determine the fate of the Concordant, perhaps even the fate of the entire galaxy. The silence that descended upon the chamber as Grand Proctor Valerius prepared to speak was absolute. Every eye, every sensor, every biomonitor was focused on him. He took a deep breath, the crystalline air filling his lungs, and began to speak. "We will not engage in any hostile action against the humans," he declared, his voice resonating with authority. "However, we will not ignore their transgressions. We will dispatch a delegation to the Sol system. A delegation composed of our most skilled diplomats, our most astute observers, and our most understanding representatives. They will establish contact with the humans. They will assess their capabilities, their intentions, and their potential impact on the Concordant. They will report back to us with their findings, and based on those findings, we will decide how to proceed." A collective sigh of relief swept through the chamber. The decision, while not entirely satisfactory to everyone, represented a compromise, a middle ground between the extremes of aggression and inaction. It was a cautious approach, a measured response to an uncertain threat. But as the meeting adjourned, as the dignitaries dispersed, as the Obsidian Council chamber slowly emptied, Grand Proctor Valerius remained behind, alone with his thoughts. He stared into the heart of the colossal geode, its crystalline facets reflecting his own anxieties, his own uncertainties. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were underestimating the humans, that they were focusing on the wrong things, that they were missing something fundamental about this strange new species. He glanced at a private communication panel, bathed in a soft blue light. He hesitated, then activated it. A holographic image flickered to life, revealing the face of Admiral Thrax, commander of the Concordant's First Fleet. "Admiral," Valerius said, his voice low and grave, "prepare a small, discreet task force. I want it stationed near the Sol system. Under no circumstances are you to engage the humans unless they initiate hostilities, but I want you to be ready, just in case." Admiral Thrax, a veteran of countless battles, nodded grimly. "Understood, Proctor. I have a feeling we're going to need it." Light years away, on board the human vessel Starseeker**, Captain Eva Rostova gazed out at the swirling nebula that lay before them, its colors like nothing she had ever seen before. The Starseeker was a deep space exploration vessel, one of the first of its kind, and Rostova was its captain, its commander, its guiding light. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, for the opportunity to venture into the unknown, to push the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding. "Captain," the ship's sensor officer, Lieutenant Commander Jian Li, called out, "we're detecting an unusual energy signature approximately 10 light minutes ahead. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Rostova turned from the viewport, her brow furrowed. "Unusual how, Commander?" "It's complex," Li replied, his fingers flying across his console. "Highly structured, almost artificial. It's as if someone is deliberately broadcasting a signal, but the signal itself is scrambled. I can't make heads or tails of it." Rostova approached Li's console, studying the data streams that scrolled across the screen. She didn't pretend to understand the intricacies of the energy signature, but she could see that it was indeed unusual. It was chaotic, yet organized. Random, yet purposeful. It was as if someone was trying to communicate, but was doing so in a language that no one could understand. "Can you isolate the source of the signal, Commander?" Rostova asked. "Yes, Captain," Li replied. "It's coming from a series of precursor ruins located within the nebula." Rostova's eyes widened. The precursors. An ancient, enigmatic race that had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago, leaving behind only scattered ruins and tantalizing clues to their existence. The Concordant had warned them to stay away from precursor sites, to avoid disturbing their ancient mysteries. But Rostova couldn't resist the allure. She had to know what was hidden within those ruins. "Set course for the precursor ruins, Commander," Rostova ordered. "Proceed with caution. And keep me informed of any changes in the energy signature." As the Starseeker plunged deeper into the nebula, Rostova couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that they were stepping into something far greater than themselves. On the bridge of the Stargazer flagship of the Concordant's First Fleet Task Force, Admiral Thrax watched the human vessel enter the nebula with growing unease. He had received the Proctor's orders to observe and to be ready. But he didn't like it. He didn't like the humans' recklessness, their curiosity, their apparent disregard for the dangers that lay hidden within the precursor ruins. "Report," Thrax barked, his voice echoing across the bridge. "The human vessel is approaching the precursor ruins, Admiral," the ship's sensor officer reported. Energy signatures are fluctuating wildly. It's as if they're interacting with something within the ruins. Thrax clenched his fists. He had a bad feeling about this. Very bad feeling. He had seen the power of the precursors firsthand, the devastation they could unleash. He didn't want the humans to awaken something that should have remained buried. "Prepare to engage the human vessel," Thrax ordered, his voice grim. "If they attempt to activate any precursor technology, we will stop them, by any means necessary." As the Asterisk Stargazer and its accompanying vessels moved into position, Thrax couldn't help but wonder if he was making the right decision. Was he protecting the galaxy, or was he simply escalating a situation that could have been resolved peacefully? Deep inside the precursor ruins, Captain Rostova and her team were making their way through a labyrinth of corridors, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was deafening. The energy signature that had drawn them here was growing stronger with each step, resonating within their very bones. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Lee said, his voice hushed, "I'm detecting a large chamber ahead. The energy signature is strongest there." Rostova nodded, her hand resting on her sidearm. "Let's proceed with caution." As they entered the chamber, they were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. The chamber was vast, its walls covered in intricate carvings that seemed to writhe and shift in the dim light. In the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, a crystalline spire that pulsed with energy. The energy signature that had drawn them here. "What is it?" Rostova whispered, her voice filled with awe and trepidation. "I don't know, Captain," Lee replied, "but I have a feeling we're about to find out." As Rostova approached the crystalline spire, she felt a strange connection to it, as if it was calling out to her. She reached out her hand and touched the spire, and in that moment everything changed. A surge of energy coursed through her body, filling her with knowledge, with understanding, with power. She saw the history of the precursors, their rise and fall, their triumphs and their failures. She saw the secrets of the universe, the mysteries of time and space. She saw the future, a future filled with both hope and despair. And she understood what the precursors had been trying to tell them. They were not the first. They were not the only ones. There were others out there, others who had come before, others who had risen and fallen, others who had left behind their own ruins, their own secrets. And they were coming. A signal, a distress call, a warning. The precursors had sent it out millions of years ago, hoping that someone would hear it, that someone would understand. And now, finally, someone had. But what were they supposed to do with this knowledge? How could they prepare for a threat that was so ancient, so powerful, so unknown? As the energy surge subsided, Rostova staggered back, her mind reeling. She looked at her team, at the crystalline spire, at the intricate carvings on the walls. Everything seemed different now. Everything seemed clearer. "We have to leave," Rostova said, her voice urgent. "We have to warn the others." As they turned to leave the chamber, they were met by a hail of energy fire. The Stargazer and its accompanying vessels had arrived. "We have to get out of here," Lee yelled, pulling Rostova behind a large rock formation. Rostova activated her comms. "This is Captain Rostova of the Asterisk Starseeker Asterisk. We are under attack by the Concordant fleet. We need assistance." The only response was static. They were on their own. Grand Proctor Valerius watched the unfolding events on the holoscreen with growing horror. He had authorized the deployment of the task force, but he had never imagined that it would come to this, that they would engage the humans in combat, that they would risk awakening the precursor technology. "Admiral Thrax, what is the meaning of this?" Valerius demanded, his voice trembling with rage. "I ordered you to observe, not to attack." "The humans were attempting to activate precursor technology, Proctor," Thrax replied, his voice defensive. "I had no choice. I had to stop them." "You fool," Valerius roared. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've escalated a situation that could have been resolved peacefully. You've risked awakening something that should have remained buried." "With all due respect, Proctor," Thrax said, his voice hardening, "I believe I acted in the best interests of the Concordant. The humans are a threat. They must be contained." Valerius closed his eyes, his mind racing. He had to find a way to de-escalate the situation, to prevent a full-scale war. He had to find a way to understand the humans, to learn their secrets, to find a way to work with them, not against them. He opened his eyes and stared at the holoscreen. He saw the Starseeker desperately trying to evade the Concordant fleet. He saw the precursor ruins pulsing with energy. He saw the future, a future filled with uncertainty, with danger, with the potential for both great good and great evil. "Admiral Thrax," Valerius said, his voice calm but firm, "stand down, cease all hostile actions against the human vessel. I want you to establish communication with them. I want you to offer them safe passage back to their home system, and I want you to apologize for this misunderstanding." Thrax stared at the Proctor, his face a mask of disbelief. "Apologize?" "To the humans, after they attempted to activate precursor technology." "Yes, Admiral," Valerius said, his voice unwavering. Apologize. It is the only way to prevent a war. It is the only way to find a solution. It is the only way to save the galaxy. Rostova, battered and bruised but still alive, listened to the Concordant's offer of safe passage with a mixture of suspicion and relief. She had no idea why they had suddenly changed their tune, but she wasn't about to argue. They had to get back to Earth to warn them about what she had learned. "We accept your offer," Rostova said, her voice weary. "But we want assurances that we will not be harmed, and we want to speak to your leader, Grand Proctor Valerius." A long silence followed. Then finally, a voice crackled over the comms. "Your terms are accepted, Captain Rostova. You will be escorted to a neutral location where you will be able to communicate with Grand Proctor Valerius." As the Asterisk Starseeker limped away from the precursor ruins, escorted by the Stargazer Asterisk, Rostova couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that the galaxy was about to enter a new era, an era of change, of conflict, of discovery, and that humanity was destined to play a central role in it. In a neutral location, light years away from the Sol system, Captain Rostova stood face to face with Grand Proctor Valerius. The meeting was tense, fraught with suspicion and distrust, but both Rostova and Valerius knew that they had to find a way to bridge the gap between their species to find a common ground. "Captain Rostova," Valerius said, his voice formal but respectful, "I apologize for the actions of Admiral Thrax. He acted without my authorization. His actions do not reflect the views of the Concordant." "I appreciate the apology, Proctor," Rostova replied, her eyes narrowed. "But I need to know why you attacked us in the first place. What do you know about the precursors? And what do you know about the threat that they were trying to warn us about?" Valerius hesitated. He had been sworn to secrecy to protect the Concordant from the knowledge of the precursors and their warnings. But he knew that he couldn't hide the truth from the humans, not anymore. "The precursors were an ancient race that existed millions of years ago," Valerius began, his voice low. "They were incredibly advanced, possessing technology that we can only dream of, but they were also reckless. They experimented with forces that they didn't understand, and they ultimately destroyed themselves." "But they left behind a warning, didn't they?" Rostova pressed. "A warning about something coming, something that destroyed them." Valerius nodded. "Yes, they left behind a warning about a cosmic entity, a force of destruction that consumes entire galaxies. They called it the Voidbringer." Rostova gasped. The Voidbringer, the entity that the precursors had tried to warn them about, the entity that was coming. "We have to prepare," Rostova said, her voice urgent. "We have to warn everyone. We have to find a way to stop it." "I agree," Valerius said, his voice filled with determination. "We must work together, humans and the Concordant. We must combine our knowledge, our resources, our technology. We must stand united against this threat." And so an alliance was forged. An alliance between humans and the Concordant. An alliance born out of fear, out of necessity, out of a shared understanding of the danger that lay ahead. But as they began to prepare for the coming storm, they discovered something even more disturbing, something that would shake the foundations of their understanding of the universe. They discovered that the Voidbringer was not just a force of destruction. It was a gardener. It pruned away species that had reached their evolutionary limit, allowing new ones to grow and flourish. It culled galaxies that had become stagnant, making way for new ones to be born. It was a necessary evil, a cosmic force that maintained the balance of the universe, and it was coming for them. But the alliance between humans and the Concordant was not deterred. They had come too far. They had learned too much. They had seen too much. They were not going to simply roll over and accept their fate. They were going to fight. They were going to fight for their survival. They were going to fight for their future. They were going to fight for the future of the galaxy. And as they prepared for battle, they made one final, startling discovery. The precursors had not been destroyed by the Voidbringer. They had chosen to become it. They had realized that the only way to truly understand the universe, to truly control it, was to become the force that shaped it. And so they had transcended their physical forms and merged with the Voidbringer, becoming its consciousness, its will. And now they were reaching out to the humans, offering them the same opportunity. The opportunity to transcend their limitations, to become something greater, to become the guardians of the galaxy. The choice was theirs. As the Voidbringer approached, as the galaxy trembled, as the fate of the universe hung in the balance, the humans and the Concordant had to make a decision. A decision that would determine not only their own future, but the future of all life in the galaxy. The Obsidian Council chamber was silent once more, this time with the weight of a cosmic decision pressing down upon it. Grand Proctor Valerius stood before the assembled dignitaries, his carapace dull, his tendrils limp. Beside him stood Captain Eva Rostova, her face etched with exhaustion but her eyes burning with an inner fire. "The choice is ours," Valerius stated, his voice barely a whisper. We can fight the Voidbringer and likely perish, or we can join it and become something more. A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Join the Voidbringer, become the very force they had been preparing to fight. The idea was unthinkable, sacrilegious. Counselor Erev rose, his tendrils practically vibrating with outrage. This is madness. We cannot surrender our autonomy, our individuality. We are not meant to be puppets of some cosmic entity. But what is the alternative? Lyra countered, her voice a gentle hum. Destruction? Annihilation? Is it not better to embrace change, to evolve, to become something greater than ourselves? Rostova stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the assembled dignitaries. We have learned so much in such a short time. We have seen the wonders of the universe, and we have faced its terrors. We have learned that there is no easy answer, no simple solution. But we have also learned that we are capable of anything. We are capable of facing any challenge, of overcoming any obstacle, and we are capable of making our own choices. She paused, taking a deep breath. The precursors offered us a choice to become like them, to transcend our limitations, but they also left us a warning that the Voidbringer is not a benevolent force. It is a force of balance, of order. It destroys as much as it creates. It is not inherently good or evil, it simply is. She looked at Valerius, then back at the assembled dignitaries. We can join the Voidbringer and become a part of its cosmic dance, but we must do so with our eyes open. We must understand the consequences of our actions. We must be willing to accept the responsibility that comes with such power. A long silence followed. The dignitaries weighed the options, considering the potential consequences of each choice. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Finally, Valerius spoke, his voice firm and resolute. We will not join the Voidbringer. We will not surrender our autonomy. We will not become puppets of some cosmic entity. A collective cheer erupted from the chamber. The decision had been made. They would fight. But Rostova held up her hand, silencing the crowd. We will not fight the Voidbringer with weapons and warships. We will fight it with knowledge and understanding. We will study its patterns, its behaviors, its weaknesses. We will find a way to communicate with it, to reason with it, to convince it that we are worthy of survival. And so, the alliance between humans and the Concordant embarked on a new mission. A mission to understand the Voidbringer, to learn its secrets, to find a way to coexist with it. They sent out probes, equipped with advanced sensors and communication devices. They studied the precursor ruins, searching for clues. They delved into the deepest mysteries of the universe, seeking answers. And slowly, painstakingly, they began to unravel the truth. They discovered that the Voidbringer was not a conscious entity. It was a force of nature, like gravity or electromagnetism. It followed a set of rules, a cosmic algorithm that dictated its actions. And they discovered that they could influence that algorithm. They could use their knowledge, their understanding, their creativity to alter the Voidbringer's behavior, to guide it towards a more benevolent path. It was a long and arduous process, filled with setbacks and disappointments. But they persevered, driven by their determination to save the galaxy. And finally, after years of relentless effort, they succeeded. They managed to alter the Voidbringer's algorithm to convince it that they were worthy of survival. They showed it their compassion, their creativity, their potential for growth. And the Voidbringer listened. It changed its course, bypassing their galaxy, leaving them to continue their evolution. Galaxy was saved, but the alliance between humans and the Concordant was forever changed. They had faced the ultimate threat, and they had emerged victorious. They had learned the true meaning of unity, of cooperation, of understanding. And they had learned that even the most terrifying forces in the universe can be tamed, can be guided, can be transformed. In the Obsidian Council chamber, Grand Proctor Valerius and Captain Eva Rostova stood side by side, their faces etched with the wisdom of experience. We have come a long way, Valerius said, his voice filled with emotion. From fear and suspicion to trust and understanding, we have learned that even the most different species can find common ground, and we have learned that together we can overcome any challenge. Rostova nodded, her eyes shining with hope. The future is uncertain, but we are ready. We are ready to face whatever comes our way because we know that we are not alone, we have each other, and that is all that matters. As they looked out at the assembled dignitaries, at the representatives of 1,000 worlds, they knew that the galaxy was entering a new era. An era of peace, of cooperation, of exploration. An era where humans and aliens would work together to build a brighter future. And as they gazed out at the stars, they couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries lay hidden within the vast expanse of the universe. What other challenges awaited them? What other wonders they would discover? But they were not afraid. They were ready because they knew that whatever came their way, they would face it together. They were the guardians of the galaxy, and Earth, the backwater planet, had shown them the way.